All right. So picture a person from a tribal society, tribesman, tribeswoman. What do the words uncivilized, subhuman, inhuman, savage perhaps come to mind? It may for many of us, we may have thought in these terms, or still do. But this simply is just is not true. Those who live without the technology and technological advancements that we do, without them, that does not make them our inferiors, but we are still rather equals. They simply live differently. There are many ways in which to live human life, and we simply live one of them. My capstone, in case you didn't know, is on cultural anthropology, which is the study of human cultures and societies. And today, more particularly and specifically, I'm talking about isolated tribes. In the 21st century, there are still tribal peoples who live virtually or entirely uncontacted from the rest of global society, which is just an incredibly interesting phenomenon to me. The reasons for my studying it this year are as follows. The first is I enjoy the specifics of learning just specific things about certain peoples, and I'll talk about two of them later on in this speech. But just their rituals, their beliefs, their ways of life, just how they live the human life differently, and not in an inferior fashion, but rather a different one. And secondly, I want to more fully realize the equal humanity in us all. I think that cultural anthropology is a means of doing that, and it's quite an excellent one at that, I think. And then thirdly, I believe that we can make, to use a cliche, the world a better place, because in learning about cultural anthropology and and by thinking of tribal people in completely human terms, that's very important, I think, lest we succumb to arrogance. And the further my capstones progress this year, the more fully have I realized the extent to which I enjoy learning about isolated tribes. It's just really incredibly fascinating. So I want to explore how people all over the world live so differently, yet are the same in core ways. We all share common attributes that make us humans, that make us people, that transcend culture and beliefs. And it's really just a beautiful, enthralling dichotomy to me, just this dual truth that we are people, we're all people, but we all do the human thing a bit differently, and some more starkly different than others. For you and me, our world structure has drastically changed technologically over the years. We have not always had cars, stereos, radios, airplanes, boats, trains, anything like that. Not even wheels at one point, a long time ago, we invented the wheel. Those things have since been invented. But for some people, this is not a part of their lives, and many have not even seen a wheel. It's just not part of their society. For some, just the tech is pretty much the same or near the same as it had been for their ancestors long ago, as ours were long, long ago. Some societies of people are totally or almost totally uncontacted by the rest of the world, the interconnected world in which we live, and what we know as. Some still live technologically in the Stone Age, but I think there's something lovely about that, to see a fresh perspective of how to also, there's just, we don't have a monopoly on how to live in terms of culture, or just ways of, like, versus traditional versus modern. I guess in the way we see culture, there's different ways to be human. We're all equal. We can all think, have ideas, be creative, sing, dance. We can have opinions. We can create changes in our communities. Again, there are these certain attributes that unite us as human beings, and I think it's important to realize this. Though our ways of life may differ greatly, we all share the same qualities that make us human. We are different yet entirely the same. Again, that's that dual truth that I was talking about earlier. So our world is largely interconnected. We have the internet, we have alliances between national defense forces, we have trade, diplomacy, we can call people overseas. There are ways, for instance, take Japan and the United States, just two countries that are different culturally, very different societies, but there's like relations between them. They're not completely separate, and that we live in an interconnected world. But for some people, that's not the case, and they live only among themselves. That's just simply how that they've always lived. There's stark differences between tribal and interconnected Earth, and difference can be a separator if we allow it to be one. Unfortunately, we often do, which can lead to arrogance and dehumanization, two evils which we do not want to commit against our fellow man. That's also true for race and religion and concepts like topics like that in our own society, where we see people as others and therefore dehumanize them or are arrogant in thinking of them. And I think not only is it a thing of just thinking about other types of societies, but within our own society, there are related issues. So there's food for thought there. We must do our best to overcome this thinking. God created all human beings, and all of them He created to be each other's equal. If my capstone had a moral theme, it would be to facilitate human unity and love on a global scale. God wants us to unite humans, to have a united human race. Cultural anthropology makes this more possible than it otherwise would be, in my opinion. Galatians 3:28 says that there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is no male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. All God's creation, we are all God's creation, and we all, and I hope to bridge the gaps that prevent us, and do my part in preventing us from realizing this. I'd like to share with you a bit of what I've done this year as far as Capstone is concerned, just experiences and what I've learned. Starting with my interview with Mr. Spector last semester, we talked about the Sentinelese, who are a people who live off an island off of the coast of India. Some speculate they have lived in isolation for tens of thousands of years, and this is still true today. They use stone. They use bows and arrows. There are pictures you can find online of. It was in the wake of the 2004 tsunami around there, and there's it's a overhead picture of I think it's a man, but he's like holding a bow up to whatever the aircraft is that took the picture, and this is in like 2004 that people still live like this. It's really quite interesting. The Indian Navy actually patrols the waters surrounding the island and to protect the people from diseases to which they would have no immunity from outsiders, and also to keep outsiders safe from those people if they get too close, because culturally that's just, they do not trust outsiders. It's just that's in part why where we haven't been able to contact them. Inspector responded, he entertained the idea that it's valid to keep, to protect them from us and us from them, or whatever, because of those reasons. But it's not, but in doing that, and I agree with this, that we lose something, and that's inspiration, like mutual cultural kind of inspiration, and we miss learning something from our fellow man that we could learn otherwise if we could somehow commune with them, but we cannot. And so there's something I like about that, because if I were to create a perfect world, a vital characteristic of that, a core characteristic of that would be a global unity. And now I'm not naive to think that the notion of human achieved utopia is not hopelessly unattainable, of an end to seek. Our nature throughout history has proven this to be true. If you look for 1 second into a history book, you'll see that people kind of suck and are really bad at getting along. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to do our best to just be good human beings to each other, and to recognize each other as equal creation under God, to live harmoniously as a species. God made us to be in community and to be together. This year, I also spoke with the Denver Museum of Nature and Sciences Director of Anthropology, Dr. Steve Nash. Yeah, he and I had thought initially that there was a that the only academia-related like vocational paths could be taken for cultural anthropology students. Apparently, this is not true. There are also government and business opportunities, which I did not know, and that was a bit relieving to hear. If I want to continue down this like study in future life, I personally do not think that I'd be a terribly great teacher, and nor do I think I'd like to be. Just it's not my personality type. But so that's quite I guess quite relieving. Just wouldn't fit with me. So there are other options. But and he also told me some very wise words. He said, "You can always make more money, but you can't make more time." He said, which I believe he meant by that is that he was advising me not to put income as a foremost concern in vocational decision making, but rather put interests in that position. Like too often, people sacrifice what they love for larger paychecks, and obviously you want to make a living wage and everything like that. But if you do not want to sacrifice what you love by just for more money vocationally. Life's too short for toiling miserably instead of joyfully working. If you love what you do, I mean that's what you want. You don't want to work just to get money. I think that's really profound. I also spoke with Dr. Taylor, who works here. There he is. And we talked about, we had a pretty sociocultural conversation. He was drawn to pursue his PhD in religious studies because of questions he had about the nature of humans. I also have questions about this, so this is really quite interesting to me. We agreed that despite there being various cultures, there are some ways in which we're all the same, and there are some things that transcend that divide. Something in particular he showed me, and I did not know this, people of various faiths, for instance, good parents, regardless of the faiths to which they adhere, they all want what they believe in their worldview to be the good for their children, and so that's a commonality that really is quite uniting. And if we can recognize things like that, we can see people in a better light who are different than us, in more humanizing light. We also discussed and agreed that it is possible for we Christians to bring about human unity while not succumbing to relativistic thinking. We can hold on to our tightly held beliefs and also live harmoniously with people with whom we disagree and peacefully with them. And so that is also quite good. The Yanomama is the second people I'd like to talk to you about. Initially, this first semester, I had thought that I didn't know if I was going to be able to talk about learn about specific indigenous tribes, but this semester I was able to. I read a book by the late Napoleon A. Chagnon. It's called Noble Savages: My Life Among Two Dangerous Tribes, the Yanomama and the Anthropologists. The Yanomama are one of the most isolated peoples in the world. They live in North Brazil and South Venezuela's rainforests and mountains. And this was Chagnon was the first anthropologist to substantively study their people in the 1960s. And so that's how isolated they were from the rest of humanity even then, which is really quite interesting that that is still the case in today's world. Between November of 1964 and March of 1966, he learned of the frequent wars between Yanomama villages. Just unbeknownst to us, there's incessant war going on in the rainforests of South America among different tribal groups under the same larger tribe, which is really interesting that we're just very, very ignorant of that. It's really interesting. There's a whole other world out there. He also learned of the complex social and political structure of that people, of their religion, of their creation story, and taboos about the utterance, concerning the utterance and knowledge of personal names. Because to them, an outsider, if they know the personal name of a Yanomama person, to know that is to have a certain power over someone in their mind, and so it's very It's very taboo for an outsider to know that. That's just an example of that. But they also have, Dr. Chagnon also developed a writing system to learn their language because they did not have the Yanomama is not a written language, and he did develop that in order to study them. So there was very little known about them prior to his learning about them substantively in the 60s. And it's a non-fictional book, but there's still a moral message, I think, to it. That humanity is equal, like I've been talking about, all humanity, regardless of how they live. He recalls that he treated the Yanomama with respect, and he acknowledged the complexities within their society, saying the ties of kinship, descent, and marriage were only part of the puzzle of how their social and political system worked. He also recalls that middle-class Venezuelans in Caracas, when they learned that he spent time in Indian country, they asked him to bring them back in India because they needed another domestica, which means they wanted an Indian because they needed another domestic worker around the house to help them. And he responded in the book the following sentence that it's as if they believe that you can take a native Venezuelan Indian from their home forcibly and to put them into the employ of your house. And so he lived among the Yanomama people, and he saw their world and experienced their daily lives, of what they were like. He saw that they were just like us, and he recognized their humanity. And I think we can do the same thing with peoples like that and with people in our own community. In Acts 17:26, it says that God made from one man every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth. We're all people to the same extent, and we ought to regard these peoples like our own as such. Book choice struggles during this year. There was a bit of stress concerning what I was going to read for my capstone component for reading. I was going to read The Silk Roads initially, which is a quite historical work by Peter Frankopan, recommended me by Mr. Spector. And then I switched to something Mr. Schultz suggested to me, which is Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind, which is a bit sociologically based. And then now what I landed on was Noble Savages, which was given me by Mr. Schultz, so we bought that. And it's been good for the most part, and I've grown a lot from Capstone. There have been ups and downs. It's a mixed bag, like many things in life, but it was really, I'm glad to have partaken in it. And ultimately, the soul of my project, if I'm going to put a soul to my project, I think it would be this. It's whatever I can do to help unify the world, knowing full well that human nature, given its fallen nature, it's impossible to achieve a perfect harmony. But we can help build stronger human community that transcends all barriers, and we can bring people together and not apart, and not tear them apart. And we can realize that at the core of each and every one of us, we are entirely the same despite our cultural differences. Thank you very much.